Hello students, myself Dr. Jayanta Bhattacharjee, and now we are going to start history chapter 3 class 10, that is making of the global world. Here we are going to discuss line by line based on your question from board exams point of view. Okay, now before start the question I must say subscribe this channel, like it, share it and comment it, and tell your friend about this channel. Here you can find plenty of solutions from your the problems you are getting in your mind. All the problems will be solved here. So without wasting any time, let's highlight what the chapter exactly saying. See, the making of modern world implies how the present global world came in this position. Before this, we must analyze what was the condition of the pre-modern world. Let's start. See, what is pre-modern world? That means when the modernization didn't take place. During that time, just see, I am just explaining page number 53, para number 2, second para, just go it. Now you can find what happened, who travelled in ancient time and why. Who travelled in ancient time and why, just mind it. Who travelled? Very simple thing. We can find few persons, we can find few groups are there, that is travellers, traders, priests and pilgrims. Now these people normally travelled throughout the world. Now the question arises, why these people are travelling? Very simple. They travelled vast distances for knowledge, opportunity, spiritual fulfillment, or to escape persecution. These people normally travelled for these purposes. What are these? Travellers for travelling or knowledge, traders for better opportunity, priests and pilgrims for spiritual fulfillment or to escape persecution. Whenever they moved from one place to another, they carried some things. What are these? Very simple. Like today, they also carried goods, money, value, skill, idea, innovation and even germs and diseases. Mind it, germs and diseases they also carry. You become very much astonished how it is possible. No, it is possible. It is possible because during that time modern science, medical science was not so improved. Immunization system was not adequate. That's why the germs and disease from one continent was a deadly killer of another continent, because whenever a germ developed in one particular continent, the people gradually immune with these germs. But another continent, they are not familiar with these. As a result, deadly germs and diseases killed thousands of people. Now, here you can find one most precious word, that is codice. What is codice? Hindi word kodi, which is originated from seashell and it used as a currency originated from Maldives. Okay, now let's move to another thing. Silk route, just next page, go to your book, just observe Silk route. What is Silk route? Let's see in the map. From this is the route through which trades were carried out. So if I ask what is Silk route, very simple. It is a name given a vibrant pre-modern trade and cultural link between the distant parts of the world. Mind it, it is the vibrant pre-modern trade and cultural link between distant parts of the world. Now the name Silk route points the importance of westbound Chinese silk cargoes along these route. So whatever the Chinese cargoes carried silk, based on this name, the name of the Silk route has been given. When it was carried out? Very simple. They are known to have existed since before the Christian era. And the Chinese pottery also traveled with the same route as did textile, spices from India and Southwest Asia. Just listen. Chinese cargoes carried this trade with the silks to westbound, and it was carried out before the Christian era. And the Chinese potteries also traveled the same route as did the textile and spices from India and Southeast Asia. But surprisingly, whenever these cargoes were returning, they returned with precious metals like gold and silver, flowed from Europe to Asia. Mind it, they are a trader, so they can't misuse their wealth. So once the cargo is going, why should they allow to return the cargo as a blank? Rather, they carried precious golds and silvers from Europe to Asia. Now you can find the food travels, spaghetti and potato. What is this? See, during that time we are talking about pre-modern world. So during that time the communication system was not good enough, but in different places you can find variety of foods originated which traveled to another place with the travelers or through other means. For instance, it is believed that noodles, mind it, you are very much well acquainted with these noodles. So these noodles traveled west from China to become spaghetti. So just mind it, noodles become spaghetti. Next thing is, perhaps Arab traders took pasta to the 15th century Sicily, an island now in Italy. So Italian island Sicily, there pasta was developed, and this pasta brought by Arab traders. So in that way you can find in different parts of the world variety of foods developed which brought into another place. So here you can find a question. How can you say that food offers many examples of long distance cultural exchange? Exactly. Just see, unless we have a cultural exchange, unless we have a relationship, how can we bring this food from one place to another? Isn't it? That's why it reveals, say, Chinese travelers or Chinese traders, they brought one thing to another place. Arab traders, they brought pasta from the Italy, Sicily of Italy. So in that way you can find plenty of foods traveled from one place to another through these traders. Now you can find the most common of our food items like potato, soya, groundnut. Just see, potato, soya, groundnut, maize, tomato, chilies, sweet potato and so on. We are not known to our ancestors until about 5 centuries ago. Just see, just 5 centuries ago we are not acquainted with these foods as we are taking now. So these foods were only introduced in Europe and Asia after Christopher Columbus accidentally discovered the vast continent that later came to be known as America. Just see, when Christopher Columbus accidentally discovered America, after that we came to know about this food, because these foods were introduced only in America or Europe. Now the question, what is Irish potato famine? One of the good question for you, for your exam point of view. So what is Irish potato famine? See, Ireland, a country where European country where plenty of poor people were there, and they found that potato is the only good food, healthy food and cheapest food. So the Irish often termed as a humble food, humble potato. So Ireland poorest peasants, become so dependent on these potatoes that when diseases destroyed the potato crops in the mid 1840s, hundreds and thousands of people died of starvation. Just consider the case. So these people, plenty of people, they were very much dependent on potato. So once they found that in 1840s, due to some diseases in potato trees, hundreds and thousands people died of starvation. So you just imagine what was the condition of the people of Europe today. You don't consider the present Europe. I am talking about far away 5th century like this. During that time, European countries were not so economically solvent. That's why plenty of people were there, those who were totally depend upon potatoes for their food. Now the next thing is conquest, disease and trade. Just see the pre-modern world. Just see what happened in the pre-modern world shrunk greatly in the 16th century after European sailors found a sea route to Asia and also successfully crossed the Western Ocean to America. Why it is so? Because just see, centuries before, Indian Ocean, just keep it in the mind, see, Indian Ocean had known a blasting trade with goods, people, knowledge, customs, etc. Crisis crossing its water. If we cross the water, you can find there is no crisis. But the entire continent and subcontinent have plenty of problems were there. So whenever European people find there is a solution, then they considered that Indian Ocean had known a blasting trade. Just see, before the discovery of America had been cut off from regular contact with the rest of the world for millions of years. American continent were cut off for millions of years, but from 16th century, vast island, abundant crops, minerals began to transfer and trade and lives everywhere when we came in contact with America. What are the materials we carried out in trade? Very simple: precious metals, precious silver from mines located presently in Peru and Mexico. The present country of Peru and Mexico, there you can find plenty of mines of golds and silvers and other minerals which enhanced Europe's wealth and financed its trade with Asia. Just see, they carried out their trade with Asia by getting the finance from these regions. Can you imagine? Now, the one important question you have to find: how Europe managed to conquer America. Just see, Europe managed to conquer America. See, whatever the colorful lines I have made, all these are one points. You just note it down for single points each with the color. European conquest was not just a result of superior firepower. How? Just see. The most powerful weapon of Spanish conqueror was not a conventional military weapon at all. Then what is? It was the germs such as those of smallpox that they carried on their persons. Plenty of persons were there having smallpox. They went to America and they spread these diseases among the Americans. Because of their long isolation, America's original inhabitants had no immunity against these diseases that came from Europe. So this smallpox disease spread in Europe very earlier, but after that American people, whenever they come in contact with European people having smallpox disease, they were become very much affected. And smallpox in a particular proved a deadly killer, mind it, it was a deadly killer disease. It spread deep into the continent, ahead even in the European reaching there. So they themselves spreading because it was a touchy disease, and these people, they spread entire continent and deep among themselves, and these germs weakened the American, which resulted the European people to to conquer in America quite easily, and they paved the way to conquest America. So just consider, Spanish were very much strong in all respect along with America, but European people considered that with the military weapon we cannot conquer over America. So if we spread the diseases, as because the American people were not well acquainted and they didn't have any immunity against these diseases, so the European people, those who are carrying smallpox diseases, they went to America and they spread these diseases among the Americans, and gradually, as they didn't have any immunity, so this disease spread among the America quite easily, and taking this advantage, European people made conquest over America. This is very simple way. Now the next thing is that why Europeans migrate to America? Next question. In the earlier, you have find how Europe managed to conquer America. The next thing is why Europeans migrate to America. So if you consider the present context of Europe, you can't even dream what was the exact condition of Europe in the 9th century or like this. Before 19th, until the 19th century, poverty and hunger were very common in Europe, like that of India or Bangladesh or these countries. Cities were crowded and deadly disease were widespread. Why cities were crowded? Because in cities plenty of factories were developed, and the rural people, in order to search for their livelihood, they came into cities and it was overcrowded. As a result, widespread diseases we can find. Besides, religious conflicts were common. Why? See, during that time, Christianity was prevalent, but among these Christian people, they were divided into Catholics and Protestants. So they were in conflict. It was very common, and the religious dissenters were persecuted. Who are dissenters? That means those who were against to accept the established concepts or beliefs. They were called dissenters. So religious dissenters were persecuted. As a result, thousands of people of Europe went to America. Why? In search of job, in search of better life. By the 18th century, plantations worked by slaves captured in Africa were growing cotton and sugar for European markets. Now the next thing is how Europe displaced China as the epicenter of the world. Mind it, Europe displaced China as a epicenter of world trade. Here you have to find these two things. Before until 18th century, China and Asia were the world's richest countries. Mind it, what history is stating to you. China and India, mind it, were among the world's richest countries. They were also preeminent in Asian trade, these two countries, India and China. But what happened? From 15th century, China is said to have restricted overseas contacts and retreated into isolation. It is a combined efforts of Europeans and Americans, those who wanted to expand the trade in westwards. That is why China were restricted by the Europeans and Americans unitedly. Chinese reduced role and the rising importance of Americas gradually moved the center of world trade westward, just I told you. Europe now emerged as the center of world trade. So, by displacing China, Europe and America conquered the entire region for westward trade purposes. So, up to this is the syllabus for 2023-24 for your exam purpose. CBSE announced this syllabus. This is the only portion which included 2023-24 syllabus. So, I think the entire analysis is clear to you, and plenty of questions I have prepared just beside the paragraphs of the book which is given in the CBSE book. You can go through the question paper, and whatever the colorful answers I have prepared, all these colors having one points. So, you just write down all these points. This is more than sufficient, and whatever the discussion I have made, it is very much good enough for your exam purpose. So, I think the entire analysis is clear to you. I must say, subscribe this channel, like it, share it, and comments it, and also tell it among your friends. Thank you.